Hi friends, I'm Catherine with Research Rockstar. Thanks for joining me today. It's the end of the year. New Year is just around the corner, and that means that you've probably been reading a lot of articles or attending a lot of trade show sessions about trends and forecasting and what's going to be next in market research and insights. And there have been a lot of really great articles and conference sessions about trends in market research and insights lately. But in reviewing a lot of these, what I find is there's a lot of emphasis on the specific methods, technologies, tools that we use in market research and insights. And that's great, right? I care a lot about our choice of methods and tools and so forth. But to me, that's kind of what we do and not why we do it. And so if I want to think about how, as a market research and insights professional, I can make sure that I'm going to be successful in 2020, or that my team is going to be successful in 2020, I want to make sure that I understand what are the real strategic issues that are driving the need or the adoption of new methods and technologies. So I want to get at that why. I think there's been enough coverage of the how. So that's my point of view for the purpose of today's conversation. Now, I know a lot of folks are getting ready for the new year. A lot of teams already have some really great strategic plans in place, training plans in place, staffing plans in place, and so forth for the new year. But if you haven't quite finished, if you're still thinking about it, this is a great time to step back and think about, what can I do to be successful in the new year? And what I would say is that if we're talking about our role in market research and insights and being successful, and what we need to do to be successful, I would say that we should practice what we preach. Just like we tell our clients they need to understand their customers with excellence, we in market research need to understand our customers with excellence. And for many of us, our primary customer is a marketing function, a marketing leader, a marketing executive, a marketing team. Whether you work in a market research agency or you work on a market research or insights team within a company, probably over half, at least, of your research deliverables are either being funded by or getting delivered to a marketing executive. So for the purpose of this conversation, we'll focus on marketing executives and how we need to inform our why, as it were, by trying to meet the needs of the marketing executives and their challenges, their sources of pain and challenges in 2020. Now, I understand that some of you actually do research that's less for marketing folks, and your research might be getting more delivered for product development purposes or other purposes. That's great. You might consider watching this and using this as a model then, and adapting it for how you can use it to identify your priorities in that context, right? So the model I'm going to show could definitely be adopted for other types of clients whose needs you may need to meet with excellence. But for now, I'm going to focus on marketing leaders. So what are the challenges that we in market research and insights face in meeting marketing clients' needs with excellence? One of the things that I often find is that sometimes we don't have great information about their jobs and about their needs at a very precise level. We know what their job titles are, we know a little something about their jobs, but we may not know, for example, how they are evaluated. We may not know specifically what are the initiatives that they've been tasked with for the new year. And so what I want to start with is practicing what I preach and make sure that I understand these marketing executives' needs and their jobs at a really precise level. So in order to do that, where do I get my information? Well, for the purpose of this exercise, I relied on existing research. I did some literature search. I did looked at some secondary research. So what I did was I leveraged some of the information that was readily available, and I sought out information from known reputable sources that tend to do CEO and CMO surveys on an annual basis, so that I could really try to get as much data in my hands to say, okay, now if I have all this information from CMO and CEO surveys and interviews with marketing executives, what can I glean about their needs and their priorities that we can align with? Well, one of the big issues that came up in this research is really captured well in the Deloitte CMO survey that found that a large percent of CMOs report they tend to focus primarily on managing the present rather than preparing for the future. And this is a source of pain, right? So a lot of marketing executives are saying, hey, I'm really focused on the present. I've got so much going on. I've got so many initiatives going on. The data that's available to me also may be more about what's going on that's current. I don't necessarily have the time or the resources that I'd like to in order to spend as much time preparing for the future. And this is a really challenging thing because it makes sense, right? We know that on one hand, there's a bit of an information overload in marketing these days. There's so many different types of data sources that relate to marketing these days. But a lot of those are data sources that are telling us either what has happened or what's happening right now. When we talk about preparing for the future, there are a few things that can come up. One is, of course, we think about predictive modeling. Like, what can we do to predict, future demand, to understand the things that we can do that will have an impact on future perceptions or favorability towards our brand and so forth. So there is a certain amount of predictive analytics that does get done in marketing, but predictive analytics isn't perfect and it doesn't apply to all marketing challenges. In fact, what I find in a lot of organizations is that when they're talking about managing the future, that a lot of that requires a different approach. And some of that has to do with the fact that there is so much siloed information still in organizations. And so if we want to help CMOs, if we want to help marketing leaders be more future focused, because we know that's a challenge for them, how can we help them do that? Is there a way that we in market research and insights, again, either internally or as an outside agency, can help with this problem? And to me, this actually intersects with something that we talked about a long time ago. Actually, I think it was back in episode 38 of this conversation series. We talked about McKinsey translators. And McKinsey had an article in Harvard Business Review where they talked about the growing need for people who are translators who can translate between the business needs and the many different types of data and data sources that are out there. I really agree with them. I think market research and insights professionals can fulfill this role. And one of the things that means is that if we're going to help our marketing clients prepare for the future, we have to be ready to act as that data translator. We have to be ready to be able to understand what their various data sources are that they may have available so that we can help to prepare for the future. In my experience, again, there is predictive modeling, but in my experience, when we're talking about very strategic decisions and informing longer term strategies, that rarely comes from one source of information. Usually you're going to be informing those types of strategies and choices with many different types of information. So yes, you need to be that translator that McKinsey talks about, but you also have to be the person who is going to have a leadership role in the synthesis between the multiple data sources. So it's not enough to be able to say, I know what data sources to use. You have to also be able to say, and now that we've got this data, how are we actually going to synthesize it? And these days, there's a lot of synthesis that is, shocking as it may be, still human powered. So there's a human process in the synthesis of information that's coming from multiple data sources and multiple data types. Things like scenario planning, for example. So if we want to help our marketing clients to be able to do that, then we have an opportunity to help drive that cross-silo synthesis that needs to happen in a lot of organizations. I do believe that this is something that's going to be an opportunity for a lot of market research and insights folks in 2020. We need to help the CMOs prepare for that future and to be more comfortable spending time on, or make it easier for them to have the time to prepare for the future by synthesizing the multiple types of information that is often required if we want to really have a prediction, an outlook on how our market is evolving, how their consumer trends are evolving, et cetera. So part of me is concerned that in market research and insights, that in some cases we are still sort of relegated to a very specific sort of sphere of influence. But I do think that in 2020, one of the exciting things for many of us will be in looking for opportunities to lead either cross-functional teams or to otherwise be involved in cross-functional projects that might break down some of those silos so that we can synthesize information that will be important for preparing for the future. And I mentioned scenario planning briefly. If you haven't done scenario planning before, there are some structured exercises in the practice of scenario planning. And scenario planning is, again, a human-powered approach to prediction. So if you haven't done it before, there are a lot of great books on the topic. So you'll want to search for scenario planning in whatever your favorite sources of business books. Another big challenge that I see that's going on in marketing departments, I think is really well reflected in another item from the same Deloitte survey, which is this item where we found that they found that the marketers are least confident about understanding customer perceptions, emotions, and behaviors throughout the customer journey. And I think it's interesting that they noted that this applies both to B2B and consumer products, because I do too. So Deloitte was pointing out that this is a challenge because marketers tend to have a lot of data about certain types of things, but when it comes to perceptions, emotions, and behaviors, that can be really difficult. So marketers today, for example, because so much marketing is digital these days, they have an overwhelming amount of data on the efficacy of digital ads. And digital ads are important, right? But there's more to it than just the digital ads. And we also want to understand what drives the success or failure of specific digital ad strategies and content. So perceptions we know are important, emotions we know are important, and actual behaviors we know are important. So I thought it was really great that in the CMO survey that Deloitte did recently that this also came up as a key theme. All right, so if we know that marketers are concerned about these things, how can market research help? So if our marketing clients, whose needs we want to meet with excellence, are feeling that they could be doing better with understanding customer perceptions, emotions, and behaviors throughout the customer journey, what can we do to help? Well, here I think we have an opportunity to raise the bar in terms of our marketing clients' perceptions of what we bring to the table. If we want to show that we can help with things like perceptions and emotions and behavior, which is a pretty big mix of things, then we have to show them that we are also being innovative. Just like they're being innovative in trying to understand the customer journey, we need to be innovative as well. And the good news is that there are innovations that specifically address some of these things. And so some of the things that we can get into in market research these days are more methodologies that relate to experimentation. So for example, if we want to understand emotional response or likely future behaviors, there are things we can do to construct experiments to see what is the emotional response or what would the behavior be. So don't ask people, how do you feel when you see this ad, or how do you feel about this brand, but to actually do experiments, expose them to different types of stimuli, and measure the emotional response that way. So there are a lot of new methodologies. This is the great news. So there are new methodologies and data sources that do focus more on experimentation or support experiments and emotional measurements, and also the blended approaches that are using data from using multiple types of data or multiple data sources and blending them together, which I think is really exciting. Now, I know that might sound a little bit abstract, so as a few examples, on the side of emotional measurements, some organizations have been using the facial analysis tools like from Affectiva and some other companies that will actually in real time measure facial responses and map those to take those facial expressions and responses to stimuli such as video and map those to emotional responses. Now, is that mapping of of facial expressions to emotion absolutely perfect? No, of course not. And there have been some papers written about this. However, there are a lot of teams that have found that it is perfect enough that you can see where you're getting positive or negative responses. And there have really been some very cool case studies on the use of facial analysis to gauge emotional reaction. There are a lot of other cool things too going on with emotional reaction. A couple of other organizations that I think of in this space, there's a company called Proto Brand that does really cool things using imagery, using pictures as a way to get people to reveal their emotions and their aspirations. So Proto Brand is another company that is doing cool things to get at emotion. And in terms of the combined data, there's some really interesting innovations here too, where rather than just do a survey or just do a focus group or just analyze our in-house customer data, that there's opportunities to combine multiple data sources for more robust analysis. One company that's doing cool work in this area is GutCheck, and you might want to look up GutCheck and check out the description of their constellation approach, which is basically their approach to, or the Constellation platform, which is basically gives them an opportunity to blend the best of both worlds of survey data with third-party data that may be available in your product category. There are a lot of other cool things too. One of the things that I think is another area of innovation is improving our ability to measure actual customer behavior. Now, we can measure online behavior pretty well because we can see when people click, we can see when they add something to their cart, we can see when they make an actual transaction. But there are other innovations as well. I recently read about a company and actually saw a demonstration here in Boston from a company called AdRich. Their URL is adrich.io, and they actually have a very innovative way of tracking your physical product usage. So if you're interested in actual product behavior with products you can feel and touch and lift and consume, you might want to check out adrich.io, a very, very cool demonstration. And on their website, they have some good case studies with Clorox and some other companies that you might find interesting. But there are a lot of innovative things that are going on that do address specifically measuring perceptions, emotions, and behaviors in a way that steps away from over-relying on some of the traditional methods we have in market research like surveys and focus groups. Look, surveys and focus groups are still important, but we have to understand that we're part of a bigger information ecosystem these days, and we may find ourselves having the opportunity to use other types of methodologies and data sources. A third big issue that I see when I'm reading through these C-suite surveys and articles that are with interviews with CMOs and such is this, it's a theme that we've seen for a couple of years, but still seems to be going strong, and that is the adoption of agile methods within marketing. So agile methods and agile management has been big in software development for years, but it really started to hit the marketing world about 2 years ago, and it still appears to be going strong. And with agile marketing, well, agile marketing gets implemented in different ways in different organizations. It's one of those things where how different teams do it can vary quite a bit, but the key themes are the same. It's about, frankly, being fast, being focused, being iterative. When a marketing organization is embracing agile methods, they are tending to do things where there might be teams or committees, or some companies call them pods, that are focused on different marketing initiatives or different marketing projects, and they are meeting frequently. It tends to be a cross-functional group, and again, it's very iterative. Instead of waiting, so for example, if there's an agile marketing initiative around a content marketing strategy, rather than take 4 months to create the content marketing piece and then test it, they'll take a different approach so that they can earlier test the idea, test prototypes, get feedback early and often so that they can optimize before that launch. So not only is the whole time schedule for the content marketing launch likely to be a lot less in agile marketing, but the whole workflow tends to be different because it's about getting feedback early, continuous improvement, and being very iterative. All right, so if my client is working in an environment where they're being very iterative, they're being very agile, how does that create challenges or opportunities for me as somebody who's in market research and insights? I think there are a couple of things that we can think about. If we want to help our marketing clients be agile because that's where their pressure is, I think that we can, that has really implications, frankly, for how we serve the marketing client. So one simple example is initiating activity. If I know that my marketing client has specific initiatives that they're managing in an agile way, if I know that there's agile initiatives around specific content marketing campaigns, for example, or strategies, then that gives me an opportunity to initiate activity. All right, so knowing what the big agile areas of focus are that are planned for, say, Q1 of 2020, now that gives me an opportunity to be proactive, to say, okay, if these are the things they're working on, what is it that I already have or that I can quickly get access to that would support that? So before they ask me, because in an agile timeline, they may not always be taking time to ask a lot of questions, I want to be proactive. So I need to find out what are the areas of focus that the agile managed marketing team has so that I can proactively initiate activity and be proactive in providing existing or proposing new ideas for research. Also, working with agile teams, it really accelerates the pressure that we've all been under for years now to create short, concise, executive-ready deliverables. When you're delivering research that's going to a team that's probably cross-functional and that's working very fast and needs to be iterative, I can't take 3 weeks to develop that report. That's just not going to be an option I'm going to have in those cases. So I need to make sure that in 2020 that I'm prepared to create what might be shockingly concise deliverables that I can deliver quickly and that are going to be executive ready, because they're not going to read a 30-page report and they're not going to wait 3 weeks for the report. So the challenge and the opportunity for me is to create super concise executive ready deliverables. By the way, those of you who maybe have taken some of our report writing classes at Research Rockstar know that one of the topics that's come up in the last year that we've added to the writing courses are things like the one-page executive summary. Not that all executive summaries are going to be one page, but there are cases now where it needs to be. So whatever your approach is, there are opportunities to be creative here to create deliverables that really are concise. And the third thing about being agile has to do with making sure that we're being extremely explicit in connecting research results to opportunities for making money or saving money. Because remember, in agile, there's a heavy focus on measurement. So we do something, we measure its impact or its result or its return on investment, we refine, we go again. There's a very heavy emphasis on measurement, and in the world of marketing, measurement often has to do with measuring money. And so there's an opportunity as we plan for 2020 to think about, can we be doing more to make sure that the results that we're delivering for market research and insights more explicitly connects the dots from research result to how that agile team or that agile marketing leader is going to help their organization save money or make money. And so I think that's another good theme here. So basically, in the agile organization, we know marketing leaders, our clients are under pressure, and these are some of the things that we might be able to think about for 2020 to help our marketing clients succeed in an agile run organization. So we're in market research and insights, we're getting ready for 2020, and I would say that these are 3 of the key themes for thinking about how can I really be thinking strategically, not just focused on tools and methods, but what are the things that I can be doing to really help address the strategic issues that my clients have. And so we talked about our clients having some specific issues. Well, what are my priorities then? I think that there is an opportunity for us in market research and insights to take a leadership role in driving the information ecosystem that C-suite can really trust, both for understanding the present and for understanding the future. And that might mean adapting that the McKinsey translator role. It might mean seeking opportunities to lead cross-functional teams that are working on breaking down silos. But I do think that there's an opportunity there for leadership that is really going to drive the improvement of how marketing leaders use their many different information sources at their disposal. Also, we know that there's a lot of concern and pain around marketing automation, measuring emotion, proving the ROI of marketing. So I want to make sure that we're doing the things that we can do there in order to support that. And in those cases, some of that is about specific tools and methodologies, and that's fine. So some of the tools and methodologies that we might want to be investing in 2020 and making sure our team members are ready to execute on, or that we have partners who can help us with, have to do with things that are going to improve automation of insights, things to improve our measurement of and ability to measure emotional response, and more accurate behavioral measures, and so on. And again, things like mobile ethnography, emotional testing through images or facial analysis, and cool new technologies that actually measure actual behavior as opposed to relying on self-reporting of behavior can be important there. And then finally, adding that business value for the agile organization, really making sure that our marketing clients see how we are adding value by having deliverables that are proactive, concise, and clearly connect the dots to either making money or saving money. Okay, that was a lot of information, I know, but I want you to know there is also an infographic. So if you are interested in these topics and you want to see some of the sources that I was able to gather that helped me come to the conclusion that there are some good key themes here that are driving some of the strategic priorities, we did create just a little infographic. The link to the infographic is in the show notes. So whether you're watching this on YouTube or on Apple Podcasts, there should be a link for you there so that you can just instantly download that infographic. And I hope you find it useful. Here's just a quick sneak peek of it. We've got sort of an outer space sort of theme here because it's all future looking. But again, about preparing the market research and insights team for 2020, I want to make sure we're thinking strategically, and I do see these three key themes: that there's an opportunity to drive an information ecosystem that C-suite can trust, and hopefully that will be an ecosystem that we can help them make sure that they're understanding not just what's going on currently, but really inform their future strategies. We want to make sure that we're activating those marketing priorities around automation, emotion, and return on investment. And we want to support the marketing executives that need to work in an agile organization by adding more business value. I hope you found that conversation helpful. Please do subscribe and review. The more reviews we get, the better for us in the various search engines so that our conversations come up. And I want to thank you personally for all the kind feedback I've gotten. If you have any questions or comments, you can always reach me through the Research Rockstar website. And if you have friends and colleagues who might appreciate the conversation, please do forward this to them as well. Thanks, and have a great day.